Besties, imagine spending decades in the same family, raising kids together, sharing a husband, sharing a home, only to realize one day that the woman who stood beside you was never safe for your heart. That's exactly what Meri Brown just revealed about Christine. In a shocking new interview, she admitted that their bond is broken beyond repair, and fans are asking, was Christine really the hero all along, or is there a darker truth we've missed? Today, we're diving deep into the emotional war between the sister wives, the secrets buried behind closed doors, and the revelations that could change everything you thought you knew about the Browns. Besties, let's go back to the very start. Before the fights, before the podcasts, before the internet debates about who was right and who was wrong, there was just a family trying to make polygamy work. And at the center of this story were two women, Meri and Christine. On paper, they were sister wives, but behind the scenes, their relationship was complicated from day one. Meri was the first wife. She was there at the beginning, setting the tone, opening the door for other wives to join. That sounds noble, right? But it's also a heavy burden. Being the first wife means you're supposed to welcome the others, share your husband, and still hold your place as the original. That's a lot of pressure. Then came Christine. She was younger, bubbly, and very into the idea of polygamy. From the start, she leaned into her role with energy and optimism. She laughed easily, she seemed friendly, and she fit the happy sister wife image perfectly. But here's the problem. Meri and Christine were complete opposites. Meri was quieter, more serious, more guarded. Christine was cheerful, chatty, and always tried to paint things as positive. To outsiders, this looked like balance. But inside the family, it started to feel like friction. Fans of Sister Wives probably noticed it too. Meri often came across as distant, even cold. Christine seemed more likable, the fun wife. But if you look closer, you'll see that Meri wasn't cold. She was struggling. She had her own pain, her own doubts, her own insecurities. And instead of being met with support, she often felt judged or even pushed aside. Think about it. You're the first wife, you've given years of your life to this family, and now suddenly the spotlight is on someone else, someone who's easier for everyone to love. That had to sting. From the very beginning, there were whispers of jealousy, misunderstandings, and small tensions that grew over time. The cameras never caught all of it, but the energy was there. You could see it in Meri's eyes when Christine spoke. You could feel it in the way Christine would laugh things off while Meri stayed quiet. And that's where the rift began, not in one big fight, but in little cracks. Different personalities, different ways of coping, different needs that were never really met. Meri wanted understanding. Christine wanted harmony. Instead of meeting in the middle, they slowly drifted apart. Looking back now, it's almost obvious. The signs were always there. The foundation was shaky before the world even knew their names. And besties, this is just the beginning. Because once faith, family, and the pressure of reality TV entered the picture, those little cracks turned into deep fractures. Besties. Now that we've seen how Meri and Christine started off on two very different paths, let's talk about the role of faith and identity, because this is where things got even more complicated. When Sister Wives first hit TV, the Brown family wasn't just showing us their relationships. They were also showing us their religion. Polygamy wasn't just a lifestyle for them. It was tied to their faith. Christine fit that picture perfectly. She was the happy believer. She often said she loved polygamy and believed deeply in it. She looked like the strong example of why this lifestyle worked. Fans saw her as bubbly, spiritual, and devoted. Meri, on the other hand, didn't always look the same. Yes, she defended the family and stood by Cody, but you could sense something different. She wasn't as open, and she seemed to carry doubts. It's been said that Meri started to distance herself from the strict side of her faith. And when you do that in a family built around religion, it can make you feel like an outsider in your own home. Now picture this. Meri is quietly struggling, wondering if everything she's believed in still makes sense. Meanwhile, Christine is smiling, laughing, and talking about how perfect everything is. That contrast isn't just uncomfortable. It can feel like a wall between two people. And then came the cameras. TLC didn't just film their lives, it magnified every little detail. Christine's positivity became her image. Meri's hesitation became her image too. Fans picked sides without even realizing it. Christine got labeled as the fun one, Meri as the cold one. But here's the real question. Was Meri really cold, or was she just in pain? When you go through a faith crisis, it can shake your whole world. The things you trusted, the reasons you lived a certain way, they stop adding up. And instead of getting comfort, Meri often faced judgment or silence. That makes a lonely journey even lonelier. Christine's happiness may have looked good on TV, but some say it was a kind of toxic positivity. Maybe she wanted to hide her own struggles. Or maybe she wanted to prove that she was stronger than Meri. Whatever the reason, it didn't bring them closer. It pushed them further apart. So here we had two women, living in the same family, but walking very different paths. One was holding on to faith with all her might. The other was slowly letting go, searching for a new sense of self. And instead of leaning on each other, they grew more and more divided. That's why even back then, the rift between Meri and Christine wasn't just about personality. It was about faith, identity, and the question, do I still belong here? Besties, we've seen how Meri and Christine started off on different paths, and how faith made that gap even wider. But now it's time to get real about the hardest part of their story, the fights, the hurtful words, and the broken trust that never really healed. For years, fans of Sister Wives picked up on little moments of tension. Sometimes it was a sharp look, sometimes an awkward silence. But behind the cameras, things were reportedly much worse. One of the most painful rumors is that Christine mocked Meri about not being able to have more children. For Meri, who struggled deeply with infertility, that wound was already raw. To have another wife, someone who was supposed to be her sister and friend, allegedly use that against her? That's not just unkind. That's cruelty. Now Christine always had a cheerful image on screen. She laughed, she joked, she tried to make things look easy. But people close to the family have suggested that behind closed doors, she could be cutting. Her humor sometimes crossed the line into teasing, and teasing can sting when it hits where you're most vulnerable. Meri, on the other hand, wasn't perfect either. She could be blunt, even harsh when she was hurting. And instead of sitting down to work things out, she often pulled away. That made Christine feel unwanted, while Meri felt misunderstood. Both sides walked away feeling like the victim. Here's the thing, in polygamy, your sister wives are supposed to be your teammates. But for Meri and Christine, the team spirit just wasn't there. They clashed, they carried grudges, and they never really found a safe place with each other. Add in Cody, who often played favorites, and the cracks only deepened. Christine accused Meri of being mean. Meri accused Christine of being fake. Each one saw the other as unsafe. And once that kind of label sticks, it's hard to go back. Fans watching at home didn't see the full story, but they saw enough. Christine got more sympathy, partly because she opened up more on camera. Meri kept her guard up, which made her seem cold. But if you look closer, you'll see two women who were both hurting, and instead of helping each other heal, they kept reopening the wounds. This is where the trust finally broke. By the time Christine decided to leave Cody, her relationship with Meri was already gone. Meri said on her podcast recently that Christine was not safe emotionally. That's a powerful phrase. It means she didn't just feel hurt once, she felt unsafe for years. And maybe Christine felt the same. Maybe she saw Meri's walls as rejection. Either way, the bond was shattered. What started as small cracks in part 1 had now split wide open. So besties, here's the truth. Meri and Christine weren't just fighting over faith or family roles. They were fighting over trust, kindness, and the basic need to feel safe. And when those things disappear, even a sister-wife bond can't survive. In part 4, we'll see what happened after the fallout, how Christine stepped into independence, and how Meri tried to rebuild her own life while still carrying the weight of being labeled the villain. Besties, once Christine and Meri's trust was gone, there was really no turning back. And when Christine finally left Cody, it didn't just end her marriage, it completely shifted the family dynamic. Christine was the first wife to officially walk away, and she didn't do it quietly. She announced her decision, she moved on with her life, and she started sharing her new journey with fans. Her book, her social media, her new relationship, it was all out there for the world to see. She looked free, happy, and empowered. Meanwhile, Meri's path was very different. She didn't rush to leave. She didn't announce big changes right away. Instead, she seemed more private, more reflective. Some fans thought she was holding on to hope with Cody. Others believed she just needed time to figure out who she was outside of the family. And here's where things get interesting. Christine became a fan favorite after leaving. She was celebrated for finding her independence, for speaking out, for reclaiming her life. But Meri? She was still seen by many as the cold one, the difficult one, the wife who didn't fit in. It's almost unfair, isn't it? Two women walked away from the same man, from the same system, but one was praised while the other was judged. Let's not forget, The cameras played a big role in this. Christine opened up, she showed emotion, she let people in. Meri stayed guarded, and that made her harder to relate to. But just because she didn't cry on camera doesn't mean she wasn't hurting. Sometimes the strongest people are the ones who suffer the most in silence. Even after the breakup, the distance between them never healed. Christine didn't reach out to repair the bond. Meri didn't either. Instead, they chose their separate lives. Christine leaned into her new chapter, filled with positivity and new love. Meri leaned into quiet strength, slowly working on herself away from the spotlight. But underneath it all, the comparisons never stopped. Fans kept putting them side by side, Christine, the survivor who won, Meri, the one who was left behind. And that's exactly why Meri's words on her podcast hit so hard. Calling Christine not safe emotionally wasn't just about the past. It was about years of being misunderstood, minimized, and left alone to carry the blame. So here we are, besties. Two women once tied together by marriage, now living completely separate lives. Christine found freedom. Meri found resilience. Both are survivors, but their stories will never look the same. And in part 5, we'll dive into that explosive podcast moment where Meri finally spoke her truth, and why it changed how fans saw everything. When Meri Brown sat down for her podcast interview with Amy Robach and TJ Holmes, she probably knew the world would listen closely. For more than a decade, her life, her marriage, and her struggles had been played out on television. Fans thought they knew her. They thought they understood the story of the Brown family. They thought they knew who the hero was, who the villain was, and who the victims were. But what this podcast revealed went far deeper than most expected. It opened the door to emotions that had been locked away for years, to feelings of betrayal, isolation, strength, and survival. It also forced everyone to rethink what they thought they knew about the relationship between Meri and Christine Brown. To understand the weight of Meri's words, you have to understand the history that came before them. The Sister Wives family was built on the idea of unity, of shared faith, and of women who were supposed to see each other not as rivals, but as sisters. That was the dream. But the reality was much harsher. Living in the same household, sharing the same husband, competing for attention, raising children in a system that rewarded loyalty to the man above all else. It created tension that the cameras only captured in small glimpses. Behind the smiles and polite interactions were deeper wounds. And in this podcast, those wounds were finally laid bare. Meri spoke directly and clearly. She did not mince her words. She said that she could not have a close relationship with Christine because Christine was not safe for her. That one word, unsafe, hung in the air like a storm cloud. For years, fans had seen Christine portrayed as the bubbly one, the smiling mother who stood up for herself and her kids, the woman who finally broke free from Cody's control. To many, Christine was a hero. But Meri's word, unsafe, made people pause. It made them ask questions. What really happened between these women? Why did Meri feel threatened? Why had she carried this pain for so long? The truth, as Meri described it, is that too much water had passed under the bridge. Too many years of tension, unkindness, and hurtful moments had built up. And while Meri admitted that they had shared good times in the past, those memories were not enough to heal the present. Christine's version of the story has often been the loudest. She has spoken in interviews, in her book, and on the show about how Meri made her feel, how Meri was allegedly controlling, how she created an environment that was hard for others to live in. But Meri's podcast revealed the other side, the side that doesn't always make it into the headlines. Christine was not always kind. Christine admitted in one old interview that she mocked Meri for only having one child. She once said she hoped Meri wouldn't get pregnant again. Words like that are not just teasing, they cut deep. So why? Does the public see Christine as the sweet, empowering, brave one, while Meri is often painted as the bitter, cold wife who refused to let go of Cody? That is one of the biggest double standards that this podcast forced people to confront. Christine smiles when she talks, she uses lighthearted humor, and she speaks about freedom and empowerment. She packages her pain in a way that feels easy to digest. Meri, by contrast, is blunt. She does not sugarcoat. She admits her mistakes. She talks about her jealousy, her anger, and her flaws. She talks about screaming in her car instead of at people. She talks about the times she lashed out. And sometimes that honesty makes her harder to love. But is it really fair to celebrate One woman's positivity while punishing the other for being raw and truthful. Another key part of Meri's story is faith. For years, the Brown family was united by religion. Their church preached the doctrine of plural marriage. Their faith demanded loyalty not just to God, but to the family structure itself. But over time, Meri began stepping away from that belief system. She stopped believing in the teachings. She stopped wanting to live by rules she no longer accepted. And in that world, stepping away makes you dangerous. You become a threat. You become someone who could spread doubt. Allegedly, Cody himself began treating Meri as untrustworthy because she no longer believed like the others. Suddenly, Meri was not just a wife with boundaries. She was the outsider. She was the problem. This brings us to another layer, the cameras. Sister Wives is a show, and like any show, it needs storylines. Meri gave the producers storylines. She allowed them to film her struggles. She talked about her catfishing scandal. She showed her pain. She let them film her attempts to rebuild. Christine and Janelle were often more private. They held things back. That meant they got less screen time. Allegedly, this caused resentment. Why should Meri get more attention if she wasn't even close to the family anymore? But the irony is clear. Without Meri's openness, the show would not have been nearly as compelling. Her willingness to expose her flaws kept the story alive, even if it cost her public sympathy. The podcast also revealed Meri's growth. She admitted she rushed into marriage with Cody. She admitted she stayed too long in a relationship that no longer worked. She admitted she was jealous of the other wives, angry at times, and unkind at times. But she also admitted she is working on herself. She is finding new coping tools. She is letting go of pain. That kind of self-reflection is rare, especially in the world of reality television, where people often defend their image at all costs. Christine, by contrast, has spoken about her healing, her new love, and her empowerment, all of which are beautiful and valid. But she has not often spoken about her flaws, her mistakes, or her role in the pain of others. That contrast leaves fans wondering, which is more powerful, toxic positivity or honest imperfection? The reaction to the podcast was mixed. Some praised Meri for her restraint. She did not attack Christine. She did not insult her book. She did not use the interview to air dirty laundry. Instead, she calmly set boundaries. She said she would be cordial if she saw Christine, but nothing more. Others criticized her for calling Christine unsafe, suggesting that the word was too harsh. But either way, the podcast shifted the conversation. It forced people to look at Meri not as the villain of Christine's story, but as a woman with her own side. A side that is messy, complicated, and deeply human. At its heart, this is not just the story of two women. It is the story of a system that was built to divide them. Polygamy is not just about sharing a husband. It is about competing for love, for security, for validation. It is about trying to prove your worth in a structure where the man's approval is the ultimate prize. That system pitted Christine and Meri against each other from the very beginning. It rewarded Christine's loyalty and punished Meri's independence. It painted Christine's cheerfulness as strength and Meri's honesty as bitterness. It set them up to fail as sisters. And in that way, perhaps neither of them is the villain. Perhaps both of them are simply survivors of a culture that was never designed to let women truly be friends. So where does this leave us? Two women, once bound by faith and marriage, now walking their own paths. Christine, celebrated by fans, remarried, smiling, and living her best life. Meri, quieter, more private, still misunderstood, but slowly building a life that is her own. The contrast is stark, but it is also telling. Sometimes the world prefers the easy story, the bubbly survivor, the smiling escapee. But the harder truth, the messier truth, belongs to Meri. And maybe, years from now, people will look back and see that strength not in her bitterness, but in her refusal to hide the darker parts of her journey. The questions that remain are powerful. Was Meri right to call Christine unsafe? Has Christine avoided accountability for her role in the family's pain? Why do fans celebrate one woman while criticizing the other, even though both lived under the same oppressive system? And perhaps the most haunting question of all, could their relationship ever be healed, or is the damage simply too deep? For now, the answers remain unclear. But one thing is certain. This podcast has rewritten the narrative. It has shown that Meri Brown is not just the side character in Christine's story, not just the first wife who couldn't let go, not just the bitter woman clinging to a broken marriage. She is a human being with her own scars, her own growth, her own voice, and finally, she has chosen to use it. At the end of the day, this podcast wasn't just about Meri and Christine. It was about truth. It was about the cost of honesty versus the comfort of positivity. It was about what happens when years of hidden pain finally come to light. Meri may never be the fan favorite. She may never be the bubbly, smiling face that Christine is. But maybe that's okay. Maybe her strength lies in her bluntness, her willingness to face the dark instead of hiding behind the light. And maybe, just maybe, history will look back on her not as the bitter wife who stayed too long, but as the woman who told the harder truth, the one others didn't want to hear.